Good afternoon, members of Vilnius University community. Welcome to Vilnius University Theatre Hall, and I welcome all of you who are watching us online on YouTube and Facebook. It's Friday afternoon, a very convenient time to watch our event online. Usually we would have a debate with the candidates, but this year we have an extraordinary situation where we have only one candidate, Mr. Petrauskas. How do you feel being a single candidate to the position? Well, it could be a kind of deja vu. Some 5 years ago, there were 6 candidates discussing various issues, and it was natural to have a format of discussion. We didn't have enough time to share our ideas. We had to share the time among the 6 of us. But here, I am the only one now, and I take it as a trust shown to me by the community. I will introduce the rules now. First, we will start discussing your program, and then we will have a Q&A session. We have microphones on both sides of the hall. Should you have a question, please approach the microphone and ask the question. Those of you who are watching us online may post your questions right away, and the community actually is interested in our debate. I already now have a number of questions to ask to our candidate. I am Ruta Kupetytė, a teacher of the communication department at Vilnius University. There are no strict rules that we should follow during our discussion, and I will now start with one question. During the council meeting and in your program, you keep mentioning artificial intelligence. And you say that the use of AI will expand the nature of Vilnius University. And I think that we shouldn't wait till the election is over. And I used the AI to generate questions to you in relation to football. And the first question sounds as follows. What is the plan for the university game? Are you planning to launch a quick attack in order to reach your goal? Well, what concerns my plan and the relation to football, the first thing that comes to my mind is that football is a rather complex game because you have to play in a very big field. It involves a big number of players, and they play various roles. And we also have goalkeepers. It's a team game, and still every single member of the team has its own function. We have 3 major functions in a football team, and here we also have 3 major groups at the university. We have teachers, we have the administration, we have the students. Even though some players are more visible in the field than others, all are equally important. And there is also a goalkeeper. I'm not saying that the rector is the goalkeeper, but the function of the goalkeeper is extremely important. There is also one more analogy that I would like to use. Academic life can be planned to tiny detail. Just like before a football game, the coach explains the plan for a particular game, and at the same time there is a lot of improvisation, or you have to act spontaneously on the field. So at the university we also have a lot of space for being spontaneous, for showing initiative, and me as the leader of the university, I also promote spontaneity and initiative that might lead to non-standard solutions. Just to repeat the question, are you in favor of quick attack or being cautious? When I was introducing my previous program, I was thinking of one thing. In the post-pandemic situation, dichotomies prevail. It can be either quick or slow. the game, I mean, and it depends on the situation, but it has to be targeted. You have to be decisive whenever you need to be decisive, and here, just like in football, in sports, you need various decisions to reach the goal. One more question related to football. Who is the best player? A student who is really good in academic terms, or a student who is a clear leader? Well, since we are here talking about the offensive line, about the attacking line, the features of a leader are extremely important, but in the long run, the defense plays the main role. Therefore, a student who has leadership qualities can actually achieve a lot, but the academic achievement is equally important. You keep mentioning artificial intelligence in your program, and artificial intelligence helps a lot, and it helped me to generate questions that are not related to football. What would be that one word that would describe university best? Community. Community is the word that describes the university best. The university appeared as a workshop, a group, a community of teachers and students who sit together and share their ideas and their experience. And artificial intelligence is the topic of the day. I mentioned because we need to learn to use it for our own needs, for our own purposes. It's a tool that allows us to come up with intellectual solutions in the process of discussions, mutual discussions. If you had only one symbol for the strategy for the future of the university, what that symbol would look like? Well, if I have to choose something in my office, I should say that there is nothing that I can change in my office. Only one thing changed. And maybe this one thing reflects the things that are important to me. Antanas Sutkus, the photographer, used to photograph the daily life of Vilnius University many years ago. And I'm sure that you know Antanas Sutkus very well, and you know his photo of the marathon that was taken on the Universiteto Street. And it depicts a part of the university building and the university street. There is a girl looking out of the window and watching a man running down the street. So the marathon is a symbol. This is what we actually do, because no one expects any quick results from a university. But at the same time, they expect an intellectual result, and we also need financial investment that we need to use well. And the last question generated by AI, you talk a lot about international aspects of Vilnius University. If Vilnius University was a participant of a party, what kind of dance would it dance? I'm not an expert in dancing. I used to learn ballroom dancing when I was a kid, but then I gave up on that and started playing football. I would say that the most attractive dance to me would be a waltz of a teacher and a student. And thank you, artificial intelligence, for all the questions that you generated. The questions are really original. No one asked me questions like that before. And now I will not make use of the assistance of artificial intelligence, but some time ago we had Margarita Šešelgytė moderating the debate, and at that time she asked for your opinion about the vision of the university in by 2025. And then you said, I have a dream. And you said that you had a dream to eliminate the line dividing studies and science, because good science gives birth to studies and good studies give birth to science. Have you managed to implement your dream? It's a long-term dream, I would say. It's a never-ending dream. maybe with experience that I have now, I would reformulate the question a little bit. It's rather difficult to delete that dividing line, but actually, science and studies, they complement each other. We are not a research institute, we are not a school. And this is what makes us, the university, exceptional, makes us stand out. All what we do here stems from science. And if I had to give a specific example, I would say that we haven't managed to reach the level of employability of our students at the university that we wanted to have, but we did our best to promote it. We did our best to include the students into the university life and employ them here to the best that we could. And this principle of inclusion is extremely important to all of the activities at the university. And actually, a lot depends on the students. Several days ago, you had a discussion at the council, and the student representative, Claire, also asked you about the biggest mistake that you made during the first term. And you said that it was trust in politicians. You said that you had meetings with politicians. They promised you a lot, but it never happened. Now we have a new group of politicians in power. Have you already met them? Have they given you any promises? Well, we spoke about the infrastructure, university infrastructure, and looking back to my previous term, I would say that we managed to establish really promising relations with the politicians. When I was elected for the first term, I had a lot of opportunities to express my ideas about the university being more active. It had a double impact on the academic community. Actually, we lost some of the opportunities, but at the same time, our expertise was needed, and I managed to promote our expert participation in many areas. We also helped to contributed to the development of Lithuanian strategy for 2050. We also contributed to organizing important international events. For example, an international conference that took place before the NATO summit here in Lithuania. The international conference at Sorbonne University, when the Lithuanian season was introduced in France. And there were many achievements that I am happy about. We also managed to achieve an increase in student basket, and that was a great achievement. It wasn't an idea developed by me, but the interdisciplinary excellence centers were also included into our plans, and we managed to promote this idea. And the national agreement on education was also partly developed by us. There were a number of universities that contributed, but without the participation of our university, we wouldn't have achieved the increase in the teachers' salaries, consistent increase in teacher salaries. You already mentioned that infrastructure is really important. University buildings are important, but nothing changed here. And most of the questions that our community asks are related to infrastructure. What can you say about that? Well, we should talk about different levels of our infrastructure, because what infrastructure encompasses a number of things. The buildings are most visible, new laboratories are most visible, and quite a number of new buildings were actually completed. one of the buildings is the Medical Research Center of Vilnius University. This project had some problems, but we managed to finalize it, and it's only a part of the changes related to our infrastructure. Yet another thing that is related to our infrastructure and requires continuous renewal is the infrastructure of our laboratories, university laboratories. Science infrastructure should be renewed continuously because things get outdated, some others need to be replaced, and as I said, infrastructure is also related to various databases, subscription of journals and books, and it all has to be in place. Therefore, I do understand that people are interested in issues related to our infrastructure, and of course, we speak about that when discussing with government institutions. New buildings are important, renovation of old buildings is important. And there are all kinds of misunderstanding in the post-pandemic environment. Some people started saying, why should we keep investing into bricks or buildings? It's okay to have it all going on online. But I should emphasize that providing proper conditions for students to learn and for teachers to teach is of utmost importance. We already have one new building which hosts ecological studies. We need to contribute a little bit to make it functional. The database infrastructure gets outdated very quickly, and its renewal requires a lot of investment. And we should keep investing into that and keep talking to our government in order to ensure the necessary investment into science.
I would like to remind everyone who are watching the meeting online, on Facebook or YouTube, you can also pose your questions if you have any for Professor Rimdas Petrauskas. Our colleagues will relay the questions to us. Professor, your son started his studies this year in Vilnius University, so now you have a direct connection with the students. Now, what does he talk about when he comes back home? What changes does he want? Well, yes, he talks about many things, and I would like to say that communication is very important. It's an issue not only with faculties, but with the general system. Sometimes we just learn of things too late. Sometimes there are some hindrances in communication. I saw that my student is very active as a student. He is active in the student representation. I never did that as a student. But you also see that there are problems with communication and with the way that things are ran. Well, of course, the rector can't hear about everything that's happening in the university, so now have a chance to see the university through the eyes of a freshman. And I see that for him, some other issues are important than for me. And then I try to keep that in mind. By the way, did you convince him to begin studies in Vilnius University, or did he want to go somewhere else? Well, I didn't try to convince him. Well, maybe I wanted that he would make a decision to study here, and maybe he felt my desire. But then he had several options. He picked between the physics, political sciences, other things. And, well, I would have never prohibited, I would never said no to studies in another country, but I'm not sure if I would have financed that. However, he sees that my life is related completely to the university, and maybe that was an example to him, and maybe that inspired him to study here, but I didn't try to convince him. Now, an issue that is mentioned by the community in Vilnius University is that you need to produce papers, you need to teach, and then you have administrative functions. What to do? How can you divide your activities between three? I know that you have a dream to write a book about Vytautas the Great. So how much progress did you make on the book? Well, I made no progress on the book. and then we'll have anniversaries for the university and for Vytautas the Great almost at the same time. So a lot is done, but the duties of a rector are very complex, and I still need to find ways to carry out research. Well, I did publish articles during this term, but a lot of that related to my previous knowledge. It's very difficult to start new research now, as I have this administrative function, and I do understand other researchers and lecturers who have additional duties. Well, that's one of the challenges, but that's also an opportunity. You have to find a way to coordinate the tasks between research, administrative tasks, and lecturing. And if you manage to include all these parts as a whole, you can increase the quality of each. As a rector, I have limited opportunities to teach. I have my contract, which only allows limited number of hours, and I'm happy that I have those few hours at least, because it helps me keep in shape as lecturer, but, well, I just don't have enough time for research. Your program has a section on global and international university. You're talking about the strategy of the national position of the university, and the university aims at attracting more students from other countries, just like other universities are trying to do. Do you have concrete steps in mind? Well, certain steps have been carried out already. There are some certain decisions that were taken already. Two important points here. First of all, science. We put in a lot of effort in this area, and we now see results, some visible results. We have invested in encouraging researchers to join. And sometimes we see that we have very good researchers, and the researchers sometimes just don't have, maybe lack some encouragement to actually go and try to get funding to the best national projects. Now we see that our researchers are much more active in applying for grants and international programs. There are certain grants that only our university has gained, and that is a major boost. And we also have a plan for attracting foreign students. We have a number, a relative number, how many international students could be there in the university. Well, this is not set in stone. There might be some variations, but we have an idea of how many foreign students could study at the university, and that's very important for the life of the university. Another long-term goal for us is to ensure that the most motivated students would choose our university and come in, and also that the best researchers would choose our university. We have several tools for that in the pipeline, and one of the tools is related to communication. We want to ensure better visibility for Vilnius University in the national sphere. We also want to make sure that Vilnius University is more visible in the life of the society in general in Lithuania. The results have been evaluated by researchers, and the researchers say that Vilnius University as a trademark is the most recognizable trademark in Lithuania. That's very important. Now, the next step for us would be more investment in better communication as regards the research and studies on the national level. Now, can you mention the number of the foreign students that you had in mind? Well, when we prepared the document, we talked about 15%. That would be a healthy amount. Now, where does the issue lie? There are many universities in other countries that became very dependent on foreign students. For example, in the UK. There are many reasons why that happened. Of course, 15% or 20%, well, that would be okay. We would like to have this amount of students, but the important thing is then to be motivated. This is our aim, this is our goal, and better communication should help. There are other points we could mention. We could include that in the program. We should look for new ways to attract talented researchers. We have certain opportunities to attract researchers through our centers of excellence, through CERN and others. And through our participation in these centers, we can attract new researchers. But that relates to outside funding. We need to combine the funding from the university and from outside, and to try and attract high-level researchers to the areas where we maybe lack competences, but we need to improve that. Right, one of the points you mentioned in your program, and that you mentioned as well in the meeting of the council, is the funding for researchers, which includes the voucher for travel, for research. Now, what would be the amount, and who could apply for that? Well, for the amount, we need to discuss this further. But my idea is that each researcher from Vilnius University should be able to get this funding. Certain faculties have already made some steps in this area, so it's not a completely new idea, and the discussions are ongoing. It's important to discuss the amount and also on the conditions, so that the conditions are flexible enough and convenient, but also it's important to ensure that the voucher or the fund is convenient and flexible for the researchers. Now, the mobility is one area where we could direct this funding. There's also the issue of planning. Should we plan that, or should the researchers plan the trips themselves? Research also needs funding, and sometimes researchers need funding for publications. But the important thing is to make sure that the researcher can choose how he can invest these funds. The main part of the funding should come from the central level of the university and the faculties. To understand it correctly, each person would have this special funding amount, and then he wouldn't need to apply for additional funding for conferences, etc. Well, this would still rely to the budget, so the person would need to provide reports. But I believe that this decision making, yes, I believe that each community makes decisions together, because, well, if the researcher needs to leave, he needs to agree on that with his head of unit. But I believe that the decisions have to be made by the researcher himself. Now, another thing that doesn't maybe work as well as it could work is it relates to the sabbatical. So now the university has certain rules on sabbatical, but then what is your view on this? Well, that relates to many issues. There might be some problems that the system is not applied widely enough, and main reason might be lack of funding. Now we have better conditions, we have more funding for research on the central level and on faculties. Now, one meaningful investment might be infrastructure and databases. Then another important investment is the funding for researchers, the vouchers for researchers. But then additional topic could be the sabbaticals, because this practice exists in the world, and it exists because there's a need for that. What do we mean by sabbatical? Well, sometimes people might just need some time off or have specific tasks. Sometimes they might need to move slightly away from lecturing, administrative tasks, and devote the total of their time to do something else. They might need to leave to go somewhere else. Maybe they have a big project to complete, like the before mentioned book on Vytautas the Great, and that also relates to the issue of research residencies, the locations where the researchers could go. Sometimes people need a change in the way they work, and I know that in our university not many colleagues have used the system, but we also have colleagues from other countries who have used the systems in their universities, and we can see the results. People can come back after sabbatical with big projects completed or with new energy. Can you promise that the system will be operational in 5 years? Yes, we will do everything to make sure the system operates. Well, it should not be mandatory because maybe not everyone needs or wants a sabbatical. So probably not everyone would use it. And also, as we see the best practice around the world, there might be some women in some conditions who would get the sabbatical first. Maybe they might have queues, possibly. But I do believe that each faculty should have the system. Now, during your term, the university improved the policy on gender equality and the guidelines for on language was also adopted, which was criticized. So what is your opinion on this? Well, I believe that we achieved a lot in the area. The university has been active for the last 10 years in this area. I do remember that from more than 10 years ago, when I became dean, I could see that we had much fewer women in the highest positions. Now we have a very different picture. Also, I believe there's been major change in communication. Gender equality, better inclusion of people with social needs. I believe these are there are examples of good changes here. And by the way, this building is a very good example. Well, I had an injury, and this building is not fully accommodating to the needs of people with disabilities. And I could sense that after my injury. But it's very important to ensure equality of opportunity for all groups. Students are very important here. There's a scholarship by the university, and Vilnius is an expensive city to live. We want to encourage students from families that might risk social exclusion to still come to the Vilnius University to study here. The government did not put enough effort in this area, so the university, together with partners, started a scholarship of €450 for students coming from families at social risk, and we believe that the scholarship is a basis for them to have an easier time integrating themselves in the first year in the studies. Now, another thing you mentioned in your previous program is that 60 credits should be allocated to individual studies, and that's been achieved. So what is your opinion on this program? So I now speak about this issue with the students, and they choose these individual topics. And one of my students mentioned that, the program is good, but I only choose the subjects that are online and only choose the topics that are on Thursday, on Friday, when I'm either on the train home or going home or when I'm at home. So would you say that these individual study credits help to bring back students to the lecturing halls? Well, I believe that the contemporary situation we see now in studies and research and the future here is that students need this. Our study programs are long, 4 years for the undergraduates. That's very long, and students should have the opportunity to create a study plan that would be as individualized as possible and would be adapted to their needs. I also agree that there might be structural problems. There are some issues with schedules and compatibility between the schedules. I do believe that next year we'll have a new tool to evaluate these issues better and solve this problem. Additionally, Vilnius University is a big university in the number of lecturers and students, but also have many locations where studies take place. We are active in 3 cities, not on the same level, but still. That's another challenge. So we need systemic solutions to balance the timetables, the schedules. Maybe it's better to have the subjects aimed at individual choice for Thursdays and Fridays. Maybe that would help people to select them. By the way, students can select these courses from their own faculty, but we see that 50% of the students select courses from other faculties. That means that there's high need for them to study in other faculties. Now, the online lecturing might be a solution, partly. Beforehand, we had a big challenge in including students from Šiauliai in the lectures that take place in Vilnius. So I believe that online studies is an important tool. Now let's move on to the culture at the university and the communicative culture. I joined this university as a young researcher. I started my doctoral studies here, and even though I had a lot of experience in other universities, 17 years beforehand, I experienced a big change because I saw a very strict hierarchy. People would address each other by their educational titles. And I do understand that people still meet after lectures. They probably have a beer in the bar afterwards, but then they come back to the university and address each other with titles. It's probably not on the level you would see in the military, but still there's this strong hierarchy. How do you weave this? Could things be done in a more simple manner? Well, as I joined this university in 1990, I see there's a lot of change, and the situation is much better. The world has changed a lot. Beforehand, if you could have a chat with a lecturer or maybe have a smoke with a lecturer outside in the courtyard, that would be something strange. That wouldn't happen. But things change, and I see there's less hierarchical distance between lecturers and students and between the colleagues themselves. Well, sometimes people address each other as professor, sometimes they address them by title as Your Magnificence. I believe this as a sort of a game. I don't believe anyone would get angry if someone would do not use the title. Our society has changed a lot, and university has changed a lot. And I believe that this is one of the most visible changes in the university, that the hierarchical distance is now getting shorter, and there's less of that in the university.
It's high time now for you to ask questions to the Rector. Please approach the microphone for you to be heard online. Arūnas Vilnius, a professor at Vilnius University and also chairman of the University Works Council. Thank you very much for answering all the questions that you were asked. Your answers were great. I have one more question to you related to what you have already said. You spoke about a football team. You said that the administration, the students and the teachers are part of that team. But what about the non-academic staff? I would say they are part of the administration. Okay, thank you. Thank you for being so specific with your answer. But I would also like to draw your attention to the fact that the non-academic staff is are among those who complain to the Works Council most often. And one of the issues is that they are not being represented in the management bodies, for example, the Council. The Council has 2 student representatives in its composition, but not a single staff from non-academic community. Our idea would be to emphasize that the Works Council is the only body at the university that is elected directly. Both non-academic and academic staff, trade union members and non-trade union members all participate in the election of the Works Council. Therefore, our idea would be to suggest to make changes to the regulatory documents in order to make sure that non-academic staff is also represented in the Council and the Senate. Would it be possible? What do you think? The fact that this question is being raised time and again shows that it is important, and the management structure of Vilnius University is defined in the statutes of Vilnius University. Theoretically, it can be amended, even though it's not that easy to do it. My answer would be as follows. We already have a practice, a long-standing practice. There are certain rules that we abide by at the Rector's office, and there is a specific composition of the management bodies. I do admit that non-academic staff is extremely important. It's an important group of university community, and I think that trade unions and works councils are the platforms for them to be represented and for their interests to be represented. Therefore, I'm not sure whether we are ready for this internal discussion to make any further changes to the management structure and the representation structure at Vilnius University. The fact that non-academic staff, through their heads and through the platforms like works councils, can express their position is a positive thing. And I'm ready to tackle the problems that are being voiced through those platforms. And I think that we can achieve a lot by continuing working like that without including them into the official management bodies, because the issues that they raise are important and they should be tackled, and the administration can always address me and the council and other management bodies with their ideas, with their critique, with the questions that they face. So I would suggest that we continue the same way without making any changes to the management bodies. But you should admit that the Works Council has a different function from that of the Senate or the Vilnius University Council. And their representation in those other bodies would show the importance of that third group of our university community that is equally important to the functioning of the university as the teachers. The students have their representatives at the Senate, for example, and the non-academic staff doesn't. Well, we are a huge democratic community, and every single idea will be considered. And this is not the first time that this question is raised, and I'm sure that we will discuss this question on the university level and come up with a reasonable decision. One more question is related to foreign students or international students. Is there a kind of strategy to integrate international students into the Lithuanian community? Let's say we train a student, and in 5 years' time the student knows Lithuanian and feels at home here. Then when he or she comes back home, they will be our ambassadors in a way. But for the time being, we face situations where, for example, students who study at our campus in Kaunas, they learn the Lithuanian language quicker than the students who study here in Vilnius. And then we come up with some situations where students demand that the teachers use a foreign language when talking to them. Is there a strategy to integrate international students or not? The integration strategy is extremely important for our university, be it integration of students or teachers. Student and teacher integration is takes continuous effort, and we do put this effort. We have an integration week, and speaking specifically about international students, of course, we offer them opportunities to integrate, and we do promote the formation of mixed groups. Several years ago, we already took a decision that all international students have to study Lithuanian language as well, to learn it. And we have already started with this. Just like you said, those international students, when they come back and with the knowledge of the local language, will naturally remain our ambassadors for the rest of their lives. And Lithuania faces a demographic situation where we won't be able to do without a managed immigration and related solutions. So this is one of the ways to actually increase or improve the demographic situation, because currently the demographic situation is not that good. Several years ago, we completed a research or survey which showed that 7% of international students stay in Lithuania after they complete their studies, which shows that they are well-trained and integrated people who can contribute to the well-being of our community. And this issue should be taken further on with our politicians, and because this is one of the ways to actually manage this demographic process in a reasonable way. One more question related to senior staff. To my mind, since we live in a small country, we can't act by the rule that no one is irreplaceable. Actually, we do have people who cannot be replaced. For example, Professor Chesnys from the medical faculty, but there are also others here. Still, we have a restriction, according to the law on studies, that they are only allowed to work till they reach 71 years of age and not longer, irrespective of the fact that they're really great teachers and valuable asset. So my question would be as follows. Would you consider extending their term for 3 more years if a person, for example, complies with very strict criteria, and if they are truly irreplaceable? We have more and more healthy senior citizens who are really bright and could contribute in those times where we lack teaching staff, good teaching staff. What do you say? Well, we have a functioning system, an agreed system. 65 is the age of retirement. And we all know that. And there are 2 more terms that we can offer to our senior staff. So we can keep them till they reach 71 years of age. 2 terms of 3 years each. And Certainly, this process is being regulated. Still, I agree that if you are an academic person and reach 71 years of age, nothing changes. Especially if you are an active citizen, you can work on projects, you can develop projects and take part in them, and there are various projects and various opportunities offered to those people. Those people are capable of participating, but we are not capable of paying them salaries because of the restrictions, legal restrictions. And certainly, if people of the kind are really active and they still get involved, the rest depends on the groups of scientists and researchers that they work in. And there are groups where we have natural or good relationship between teachers and students. Those senior staff, they are not being pushed out of the group. They can continue contributing irrespective of the fact that they reach 71 years of age. I see no problems with that. Thank you for your questions. Those of you who are watching us online on Facebook or YouTube are also welcome to ask questions. Are there any questions from the audience? Please approach the mic. I'm Professor Roma Jusienė, Faculty of Philosophy, Head of Institute of Psychology. Thank you for your answers. I am really very happy to listen to what you have to say, because you are not just using slogans. You are covering specific issues and looking for realistic solutions. Therefore, I would like to ask a question about some further solutions that could be possible. For example, you spoke about the inclusion of students, about the employment of students at the university. You want them to come and work at the university as PhD students. But what about the internal career opportunities for our academic staff? Most probably you know that all the tenders and certification rules, they include provisions allowing for internal career without a tender being announced. Usually, organizations offer opportunities for internal career. It is important to have those official tenders announced to attract people from outside, but what else is needed in order to have that mechanism or specific rules for this internal career path to appear or to exist, in addition to those tenders to attract external staff? Thank you for your question. The laws have changed recently, and a very reasonable decision has been taken to eliminate the second tender for the same position. And we have tried this out, and because we could have chosen this second tender, but almost by 100%, all the cases, all the people actually chose to take the position without the second tender. And this is possible now. Of course, the tenders as such are open tenders, and this is in line with the nature of the university. We announce open tenders for various positions. They are international tenders, everybody can apply. But there are also some specific issues related to every single tender. And every time we think of an additional career path, we need to make a very good assessment before we introduce it. I think that in the foreseeable future we will deliberate on that, and we will find a way to define specific situations where we can have this internal career path offered without replacing the open tenders that we have now. Thank you. One more question. We already had a question about non-academic staff. It's a valuable group of our staff. I would like to ask about the changes that in the ratio between academic and non-academic staff throughout your recent term, and what kind of changes are you planning for the future? I would say that the ratio hasn't changed much, by a couple of percent, no more than that, but we also reached the university standard in terms of this relation or ratio between academic and non-academic staff. And we are in line with the situation in other academic institutions and universities in the world. So we don't see this ratio as a risky or dangerous one. And I don't think that we need a new human resource policy here. So no major changes in this field throughout my recent term. Thank you. Any other questions? Eglė Lastauskienė, Chairperson of the Senate. We have been working together for the 5 recent years, and we know you quite well, and there are all kinds of expectations from our colleagues for your second term. But do you have any expectations to us, or from us? For example, what do you expect from me as the chairperson of the Senate, and what do you expect from the university community for the next term? Well, my only expectation, which is extremely important to me, is involvement from the side of all of you, the administration, the teachers and the students, the Senate and the Works Council, all structures and every single person in general. Involvement. I would very much expect your response to what we do, to what we discuss. Let's say we have a discussion on an important issue. I would very much like to have you responding and involved in those discussions. For example, we are about to start discussing our strategy. My expectation would be to have as many people as possible involved in those discussions and sharing their expectations. Soon we will be celebrating the 450th anniversary of Vilnius University. The Rector's office, the Senate and the Council will not be the only ones coming up with all the ideas for the celebration. We all have to contribute and get involved, and we will be inviting everyone to contribute. And we are already thinking of various formats to have people contributing. It is not always that people want to come physically for a meeting, but there will be opportunities to make suggestions in writing. So involvement in the broader sense of the word is what I would expect. You already mentioned the anniversary of the the university anniversary. Do you see it as a celebration of Vilnius University community or the whole of Lithuania? Well, when I was a child, I had an experience that I remember till this day. The university was celebrating the 400th anniversary back in 1979, and I saw those celebrations happening throughout the city. I saw the procession, I saw the celebrations of students on the streets, and all kinds of meetings to celebrate the anniversary. So I think that this would be the goal. As a historian, I can assure you that an anniversary is a historic moment to make something to remember for the rest of our lives, and it's a great opportunity to do it. 450 years since the university was established. It's our community's anniversary, but it is also an anniversary to be celebrated by the whole of the country, because it's a university that functions on an international arena for 450 years.
Another question that was posed before, there was it relates to the renovation of buildings in Islandia Street. So there were questions, what is the fate of this project among people who start working there? Well, now we have an agreement. The premises have been transferred to the university for 99 years. It's a very nice building with a lovely courtyard, a good quality building which needs some inner renovations, and we have a lot of part of the funding for that. And I had a discussion today already that we would be able to use the funding that was allocated for us for training teachers to renovate this building, because in this building we'll have a center for training teachers. We didn't have that beforehand. And the building is somewhat larger than the building we were looking for our center, so I believe that we'll be able to accommodate some other needs for researchers of humanities and social sciences. I believe that the building will be usable rather soon. Now, when would the project be finished completely? Well, it will take some time. We visited that with Dean. I think it should take a couple years to complete the building, the renovation preparation completely. But I also do believe that for a very long time we'll have an additional infrastructure. We were looking for this infrastructure beforehand, and I can admit that we actually participated in a competition to buy another building, and we failed to buy that, but I believe that we actually got a better deal now. Now, another question relating to the premises. The building in Šiauliai, there's a palace that belongs to the university. What's going to happen with that? Maybe we could have a residency for researchers. Well, I believe we should deal with our current residencies in Palanga and Pervalka. Zubovų Palace in Šiauliai, well, we have a suggestion for Šiauliai municipality. Well, we have a suggestion, and we should be able to share responsibilities with the municipality for a limited period of time. But then, along to your vision, what we could use the area for? Well, I don't believe we need that building for the needs of university, but needs might change, so we should be very careful with our real estate. Now, as we are going through a negotiation, I can't comment too much on the negotiation as it's ongoing, but I believe we have made an offer that will be good for the university. Now, there's another question from the online feed. Have you fulfilled your dream to allow students to study not only in the university but also at the premises of the partners? Well, we're improving the situation here. We have partners with progressive business and also with public administration institutions. They add value to our study process. And certain areas that's very active. I believe that all programs have opportunities for students to leave the university for a short while and study elsewhere. They need to get practical experience, and it's very important for them to study as well elsewhere to acquire additional knowledge. I do believe there are positive changes with the system, And as we aim at strengthening our partnerships in the future, I do believe we'll have more partnerships in the future, and we'll have more opportunities for students to study outside university. There's another question from the audience. I'm Aistė Ramonaitė Dambrauskienė. Hello, I'm the head of communication and marketing. Now I represent the central level of the university. I have a question relating to the central level. Rector, what is your view on the challenge or an issue that you would solve as the priority in your second term? And what is the issue that relates to the central level? Well, I can immediately answer that's cooperation. The cooperation on several levels, the cooperation between the central level and the faculties. I have put in a lot of effort to improve cooperation, but that wasn't enough so far. We need better cooperation between departments, between separate units. Another issue or challenge where we have put in a lot of effort, and I believe you can confirm this because your unit is also involved in that, is that in certain departments we have people working in the same area. For example, marketing, just like your unit works there. So we should have better coordination between the central unit and the people in the departments who do that. They need monthly meetings, they need share workload, etc. And well, the cooperation will never be perfect, but we need improvement here. That's a priority, and there's a lot of value added to be gained there. Thank you. One more related question that I will pose, and then I'll give the floor to you from the audience. Now, cooperation. What could be done to improve cooperation between the faculties? And that was the question posed by students. Well, we have certain specific formats, and we need better culture of cooperation and communication between the faculties. I see that the culture is improving. There have been many changes, but I believe we still need to go forward and find better sets for cooperation. The individualized studies is one way for the students to find contacts in other faculties and start cooperating. There are also cooperation between the PhD students. We also have a specific setting for researchers. All the competitions for research groups are open for several faculties inside the university. By this, we show that there's a priority to create common projects in the university. In the new program, there will be more focus on interdisciplinary studies, as well as establishing centers of interdisciplinary excellence. These are the measures that will help, and I also believe that sometimes we need some improvement in the locations and the premises. I hope that the faculties for chemistry and earth sciences and mathematics and informatics will move to Saulėtekis area and will be closer to their partners from other faculties. Thank you. Thank you, Jonas Dagys, Dean of the Faculty of Philosophy. Well, we have a luxury now to hear a lot from you, Mr. Rector. Now we have a lot of time to discuss with you because 5 years ago each candidate only had 10 minutes. Now we can get acquainted with your plans and your decisions, but I also believe that for the community it's also important to see the person himself, to see a personal connection with the person. 5 years ago, during the previous debate, there was a short question posed that helped me see you as a person better. The question related to the books that people are reading. Each candidate mentioned the book that they're reading currently. And we could see that some people are reading managerial books, some are reading scientific books, some are reading fiction, etc. Back then you mentioned that you're reading a fiction book. I guess that was the case back then. So I'm just curious, what are you reading now? What is the open book on your table at home? And an additional question is, did you have time in the last 5 years to read so that you would not be fully consumed by your rectorial duties? Did you have opportunities to stay a full human being? Well, reading is not the only way to stay a proper human being. Well, I do read a lot, but I read in the evenings, and I can't remember the books I mentioned the previous time, but I usually read a few books at the same time. I usually have a few open books, and usually they are of different types or contexts, and often in different languages. I also love reading books in different languages. So what I'm reading the most currently is that, because I agreed to participate in the introduction of the book during the book fair. So I have read this book in English, but it's been published now in Lithuanian. And I believe David Freak, the professor from Berkeley, has written a best book on Vilnius history, and we now have a book in Lithuanian on Vilnius history, the communities of Vilnius in the 17th century. And the author represents the whole world of Vilnius back in the 17th century. He has lots of good sources, so I'm reading this book very carefully. Additionally, I have another book. I have my favorite author in Lithuanian, Undinė Radzevičiūtė. I'm reading the last novel by Radzevičiūtė, Pavojingi žodžiai. And the third book, well, it relates to football. I don't want to now talk too much about this, but I'm finishing a book by Niels Horgan, which describes the experience of the person as a fan of Arsenal football club. Now, I'm interested in football, but I wouldn't remember each game like he does. And he presents a different aspect of his life through each different game by Arsenal. So that's another book that I'm finishing. Right, so we learned a lot. We learned that you like waltz dancing. Well, I can't say that I love waltz dancing. Okay, we have another question from the audience. Rimantas Vaicekauskas, Faculty of Mathematics and Informatics. Now, let's move to lecturing. The pay for lecturers depends on the standard of 288 hours of lecturing and work with students. What is your opinion? Isn't the system too old? Doesn't the system force lecturers to just talk too much, spend too much hours talking? Maybe there are other ways of lecturing. Maybe we could move to a modular pay, where lecturers are paid for the results they achieve in separate areas. So we should maybe pay the lecturers depending on the modules they provide for the students. Well, as regards the pay system, I have to say that the system has been made more transparent in the previous term, and we see now what is the basis for pay for each function in university, and this time frame was set out in the system. I was the dean back then. However, we have to admit that life changes, situation changes, there are many changes happening, and given all the changes in the employment systems, in the certification for lecturers, well, the requirements have to be reviewed from time to time. Not every 2 years, but still the system is more than 5 years old, and I believe that the system had a positive effect. Those hours include not only lecturing but also consultations for PhDs, etc. But I do believe that the university needs to review the basis of the activities that are carried out. Thank you so much. There's another question. Good afternoon. My name is Albinas. I'm a student I was a student of the Faculty of Economics. I started my studies in 1969 under Mr. Kubilius. Now I have a question. Your last name, Petrauskas, that's a very common last name in Lithuania, so maybe you could tell us a little bit about your background. Well, yes, I do believe you can find people in all municipalities with my last name, but we're not all related. Now, my roots from both my father and my mother's side represents the demographic situation of the Soviet period in Lithuania. I was born in Vilnius, but my parents come from Molėtai region, which is not very far from here. I wasn't born there, but my grandparents lived in Molėtai district. Thank you. Another question from the online viewers. What is your opinion on the possibility what are the possibilities of Vilnius University to help Lithuanians fighting cyber threats? Well, I do believe we have a lot of competence here. We have a study area of cyber security. That's one of the areas where we don't talk too much, but I do know that we have people who are active in work groups in this area, and they have specific tasks in cybersecurity. I believe that we, as well as a few other universities, are very important players in this area. Now, another question. What is the view of the university when a lecturer is employed in several faculties and that faculties borrow lecturers? What is your view on this? Well, sometimes it's unavoidable. There are certain good practice how to do this. It's possible to work as a lecturer in several faculties. I do believe it's good that the lecturer has the chance to be active in different academic environments. Another question. For the next term, what would you do new that you haven't done so far if you are re-elected? Well, that's a difficult question. I've been active at this position for 5 years, so it's difficult to come up with new things that I haven't started yet. But I believe I can come up with ideas what I would focus better. Now I would put more effort in certain areas. I'm very convinced that Vilnius University has a strong side in the amount of different study areas we can provide. So, for example, we have the medical studies, and we have a new research center for medical sciences, for life sciences. I believe we need more effort to ensure better inclusion of all the variety of our studies. We could probably find a bit more ways to do that, but for me, I believe this is the main topic. What can be improved in the university? More cooperation between faculties.
Are there any other questions in the audience? If not, then one more question from before. Is there something that other universities have and you would like to have here at Vilnius University? Well, there is one thing that impressed me a lot, and we are doing our best to implement it at our library. And what I would like to have is free access to subject literature, and to have an opportunity to find everything in one place. in one library, and yet another thing is related to the best universities in the world. And it is related to this golden standard of science and studies. I would very much like to have this infrastructure that meets the golden standard. And of course, we have already achieved a lot in the field of science and studies as such, because the government has invested a lot into that. But when you see the campuses that other universities boast, of course, I would very much like to see our campus look like that too. Covering everything, dormitories, sports grounds, everything, the aesthetic aspect of it, because it helps attract people, and it helps people to get involved in what is being done there. So I would very much like to see the improvements in the campus infrastructure, which is present in other well-known universities in the world. Do you often go to Saulėtekis campus? Well, I would love to visit it more often, but I also know that changes are happening there and that construction started already. I haven't seen it yet. I often go there for various meetings with heads of departments or units, and there are also events that I'm invited to. But one more question. People are interested in your personality. What inspires you and motivates you most in your daily work? I tried to answer this question before, but what motivates me most is the achievements of Vilnius University representatives. We do have a number of people who graduated from Vilnius University and achieved a lot, so that motivates me most. And for example, when we hear people getting a grant, an international grant, or boasting an international achievement, that motivates me a lot. Still, there is a lot of routine work that I have to do, a lot of routine administrative work that I do as the rector, and from time to time I get motivated by looking out of the window and daydreaming. You are the 86th rector. I am the 86th rector of this university. This university has seen many students, many teachers, and many rectors. And when you understand this, it makes you focus on certain things in your work. And of course, it motivates you as well, because it allows you to identify with the institution that you are working for, that you are heading for the recent 5 years. Are there any other burning questions? Yes, there is one. Yes, it's a burning, painful question, which has not been solved since 2019. Well, it's not a painful question. I just keep repeating this question since 2019. The Saulėtekis campus badly needs some kind of space for informal discussions, informal communication. Soon we'll have a new faculty building, and mathematics and informatics faculty will be moved to it, and it would be really great to have a space for informal discussions, informal communications. Of course, we can actually use the bar space for that and decorate it with various posters, academic posters, but can we start talking about this moment approaching already? Well, speaking of the functionality of our campus, certainly we do need those public spaces that you're talking about, and there is a very strict law regulating them, but we are creative people, and we can create such a space on our Saulėtekio campus. I do not want to give a promise right now because I will have to deliver on it later, but I do understand the need for it very well. And I had a number of internships and trips to international universities, and of course informal discussions are the place where people come up with various brilliant ideas, and in order for those discussions to happen you need to provide a space for that. And of course there are all kinds of online communication methods, but the best things happen when people meet informally, and same need exists in the Old Town campus as well. I am not sure how we will deal with this issue, but speaking of the Old Town campus, the Saulėtekio campus, and Riškės campus, we will need to find spaces for this informal communication there. Well, I can also reiterate that students need those spaces for informal communication too. They often lack spaces to sit down and talk. We do understand this need, and we do our best to accommodate this need here in our premises, but we also need a space to provide opportunities for communication for the whole of the community, the whole of campus. Are there any other burning questions, any painful issues to raise? If not, I have one summarizing question to you. You said that now you are focused on the historic aspects related to your work and life, and my question will be related to that. If you get re-elected, you will be rector of the university for 10 years. And what would you like to see written by historians about this 10-year term of yours at the university in 50 years' time? Well, that's a complex question. I would very much like to see them writing that it was the time, or the best time, or one of the best times in the university history, where major changes took place. For example, individualization of studies, interdisciplinary studies, increase in international projects, and many other things. Of course, historians put them differently, but it is important. All those things are important to me. Some 5 years ago, I wasn't sure about what will happen in the future, what turn my life will take, but the most important thing is to see that people value the things that you do, that they see value in what you do. And the fact that university staff is getting more and more involved with the university life, that they are more and more proud of the university, is really important to me. And 10 years is a long period in time, especially now that things are getting faster and faster every year. I would very much like to be remembered for being a head of an institution that made major progress. Thank you very much for your answers. Thank you for coming to this discussion and asking questions. And to sum up, I would like to inform you that at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on Monday, on the 20th of January, the candidate will meet our students for discussions. On the 22nd of January, there will be a closed meeting with the Council of Vilnius University, and the election will take place on the 23rd of January. Thank you very much.